Good evening, one and all. This should be an interesting Facebook Live. Welcome if you haven't been before. This is Tuesday Night Seeds of Wisdom with me, David Daniels, aka The Shy Man. Yes, we're at an angle. I can see that. We've had a few technical issues tonight. But hey, when you've done a Facebook Live and when you've done it before and you've posted it and it turns out upside down, then I can work with this. I can work with almost anything. So, hope everybody is well. I'm glad to say I'm a lot better than I was last week. Stomach's still not 100%, but yeah, definitely better than I was last week. So apologies, I couldn't bring Seeds of Wisdom last week. I was just too ill to do it. So, where are we going to begin? I want to show you something. So anyway, there was this boy. I'm going to get straight into it. If you miss it, you miss out. Watch it on the replay. So there was this boy, and he had this. And growing up, he never knew what he wanted to do with this. And he looked at all the people in his classroom, his friends. He didn't have many friends, but the friends he did have, he looked at them and he thought, they haven't got this colour book. He actually knew what it was, but just they didn't have this colour book. At the time, blue was in fashion. So he thought, why have I been given this red book? Why can't I have a blue book? And people would take the mickey out of him because he had this red book. And he looked at it and he saw those pages, but he didn't know what to do with them. And as he was growing older, he kept thinking more and more about. He saw other people using their books, and their books had loads of stuff written in it, had pictures, and he just didn't know where to get started. And the older he got, this heavier this book became, and it became a real burden on him. He didn't know how to use it. He didn't know what he should do with it. It seemed like everyone else was getting on with it, and he just thought, at times he thought, you know what, I don't want this book anymore. I'd just rather give up. And it was only through his life experiences and having a faith in his life that one day it was revealed to him, and you probably can't read this because it's backward. He actually realised that the book he had was one that had the finest quality paper, and this was actually a gift, not a curse. And once he realised that, and once he realised that he could write whatever way he wanted because he was an individual and he didn't have to compare himself to others, then slowly but surely he started filling his pages with his words, with his thoughts. And he started to spot other people who were given books but didn't know what to do with them, and he encouraged them through his struggles to show other people how he uses books. Right, there was another person, and now this person was born into a poor background. He didn't have a lot of wealth in his family. His family didn't really have a lot of ambitions, but he was a big dreamer. And he had this dream that he was going to be in this top position. He wanted to be the mayor of London, but no one in his family had ever been in that kind of position before. So he told his family about it, and his family thought, you're crazy, what are you talking about? You can't be that. We've never done that before. What makes you think you could do that? But nevertheless, he had his dream, and he set out on this road, this long road, far away from home. And along the way, he faced a lot of trials and tribulations. But when he actually reached his destination, and he actually became the mayor of London. Finally, there was another guy. This is not a sexist, what I'm doing here. There was another guy, and this guy would see people who were broken in their lives, who needed help, and he would come alongside them, and he would show them love when other people wouldn't show them love. He'd show them that they were special when other people didn't think they were special. He showed them what it was to be loved. And in all of this, their experience was that whenever they wanted to do something, whenever they wanted to get on in life, there was always a cost, a financial cost to pay, maybe a time cost to pay. But this person to say yes, there will be a cost for your freedom in order to live a life being in love with who you are and having a life of freedom and to do whatever you want to do. But there is going to be a cost to this. But rather than you paying the cost, I love you so much that I'm going to pay the cost. I'm going to pay the cost. And the cost that I pay, the price that I pay. Evening, Terence. Long time no speak. Happy doing well, all the way from the US. So there's going to be a cost to pay. Thank you, Terence. But I'm going to pay this cost. And once I pay this cost, you will never have to pay a cost ever again. I will pay it once and for all. But I just want you to live a life of freedom. Right. Hi, Auntie Sarah, all the way from Ghana. How are you? Long time no speak. Hope you're well. Prayers for you. So if you're wondering, if you watch me regularly for what am I doing? What am I talking about? I've just told you 3 stories. The 3 stories I told you, the first one was a made up story. The second one was also a made up story, but with a twist. And the third one was a true story. So I'll break down these stories and I'll explain to you why I've chosen to use stories. So the first one was a made up story, but based on my life. So I use an analogy of a book and to describe my journey of shyness and not being sure of who I am and how I've come to know, how I've come to love myself, and now I feel free to step into being good and being great. And now, because I've experienced shyness and struggled with that, I can spot a shy person, I can spot someone who's really struggled, who's awkward in social situations, and I see my job, thank you, Auntie, I see my job, part of my purpose is to help those people who've been through the struggles or going through struggles that I've been through. And I just use the analogy of a book, not knowing what to do with it, watching everyone else with different coloured books seem to be in fashion. So that was kind of an analogy. The second one was based on Dick Whittington. So Dick Whittington is a what do they call it, like a fairy tale, but actually based on a true story. And the last one, and I actually forgot to mention it, the last story was based on Jesus. There was a slight twist on it. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a Christian. For those of you Christians who don't know anything about Jesus, obviously he came down, God's Son came down to basically pay the price for all our sins. And if you want to find out any more, then reach out to me and I'll point you in the direction of resources that can help you on that journey. But Jesus also, let's rewind a bit. So why have I used stories? Because stories are powerful. Stories are a great way to illustrate a point. Stories are a great way to engage people. Some of the best films I'm sure you've watched are all based on stories. As humans, we're drawn towards stories. Have you ever had someone tell you something, I'm going to tell you something, and then they stop and say, oh, I've changed my mind, and you get frustrated because naturally you want to find out what they've got to say. There's something about stories that just draws the human heart, and stories are a powerful way to make a point, to just get people engaged with you. So I just wanted to kick off with three stories, all different types. So stories can be made up. They can be based on fairy tales. They can be based on true life stories. But the most powerful story is your story. And the message I've got for you tonight is basically about stories, the power of stories, but more importantly, what is your story? So the inspiration for this message is from a lady called Alison Johnson, who runs public speaking workshops. And I went on one. She kindly invited me to one a couple of weeks ago. I've done a Facebook Live on it as well, and that was what the whole talk was about. There's the power of storytelling. Who was that? Was that Mr. Hegarty just giving me a like? Thank you, Stephen. Hope you're well. Yeah, the power of telling, a power of storytelling. The first story that I told, what it was, we was actually given some props to use, and I found this lanyard, like what you wear with a badge in it, and it actually had the best of you in it. And what I did, I turned it over, and then I kind of used the same story that I kind of told you, but then I turned it over, and it just had the best of you. I struggled to find that was a really good prop. I struggled to find a decent one. So sorry, you got stuck with the book, but hopefully my point was made. So she said about using props, using your own story, using other people's stories, retelling stories, and to make a point, because people are engaged more with stories than just facts and figures. More people, if I told you a load of stats about the amount of shy people there were in this country and the amount of shy people that struggle in that, versus my own story of shyness, more people are drawn to my story than just facts and figures. Anyone can give facts and figures, anyone can draw statistics, anyone can use statistics to make any point whatsoever, but stories are much more powerful. They have much more of a tug on the emotions of our heart. And going to Alison's workshop really hit home for me about the power of storytelling, and pretty much what I've been doing already. I've done nearly 80 Facebook Lives, and I've just, in preparation for this, thinking about the kind of stuff I've talked about. I've talked about my financial story. I've talked my money story, as I called the actual video. I've talked about my challenges with nutrition. So my nutrition story. I've done 3 videos on rejection by not having a dad around, rejection from my ex-partner, and can't remember the third one was. Oh yeah, the third one was about a girl I asked out when I was about 7. She rejected me. My rejection story. So a lot of the videos I've been doing, I've been around stories, just about my story. For those, again, talking about theory, being a man of faith, people's stories, what we call testimonies, how their story of faith, their journey of how they come to faith, are much more powerful, or actually resonate with people much more than just quoting Bible verses, just random Bible verses. So there is power in your story. I talked about my story. I've talked about made up stories. I've talked about true stories. And you know what I like to do the last few weeks, homework. Before I get to the homework, I just want to really say that Alison's, if you can check it out, Alison Johnson, and her public speaking workshops she titles it for you to speak like a professional, but not necessarily to be a professional speaker. If you want to prepare, if you've got a wedding speech, if you've got an interview, because believe it or not, whether you're shy or not, you need to know your story. You need to know how to sell yourself in a job interview. So she can help you with that through public speaking, being comfortable hearing your voice, being comfortable promoting yourself, speaking, broadcasting yourself. She can help you with that. So it was a really powerful day for me, and a really the space I'm in at the moment, the kind of like the shackles are off, so I was able to play full out and contribute. And people really, there was the last part of it was to think of a story but which makes you sad, and I started talking about my son and how I could see some of the similarities when I was growing up and him growing up, and how I want to change the narrative so that his story is not the same as mine. So in terms of the struggles I faced, I started getting emotional telling it, because it's an emotional subject, and that emotion rubbed up on other people, so they start getting emotion. This is the power of engaging stories. So I really want to thank Alison for that. And my homework, my Shyman's takeaway for tonight is just, what is your story? The title of my video, I don't want to give it away. I said, are you listening, or are you comfortable? There used to be, it was back before I was born, but I got to know this growing up. There used to be a story program on TV, and I think the person would say, are you comfortable? Then I begin, and she'll begin to tell a story. That was hence the title of my message. But my homework for you is, if you do not know your story, get to know your story. Get to know your story, and learn how to, or practice, because practice makes better. Practice telling your story. And you're asking me why should I know my story? Because your story, you don't need notes for your story because it's your story. No one else has the same story as you. You might have similar stories, but no one has the story as you, so no one can tell it better than yourself. Yes, it can get made into a movie, Hollywood effect, and all that. But I'm just saying, in terms of actually telling it, no one can tell your story better than you. But you're still asking me, well, what's the point? Why don't you tell my story for? I'm fine as I am. Your story, especially if you've had any hardships in your life, any struggles, acknowledge those hardships, acknowledge those struggles, because your story can inspire others, as I hope I'm doing. Your story can bring life to others. Your story can earn you money if you want, as a public speaker. Even the world's most famous public speakers, since I've started out on the journey, I've come across a guy called Eric Thomas. He's an American um, public speaker, very powerful, very passionate public speaker. And I've listened to a lot of interviews he's done, and they ask people ask him to introduce himself, and he always starts off 99% of the time. I'm a high school dropout, because he was a high school dropout. I ate out of trash cans because he was homeless for a period of time. And I must admit, like I say, I hear his interviews, and he tends to say that, and I said, well, why do you keep saying the same thing? Doesn't it get a bit repetitive? I mean, you move past that, and most definitely moved past that. But I believe the reason he says those things, because people will be drawn to what he's saying, his story. And how many billions of people are in this world? There's X amount of people who haven't heard Eric Thomas' story. There's X amount of people who don't know who Anthony Robbins is. These well-known people, there's always someone who doesn't know who you are and doesn't know your story. So the reason I believe he keeps saying that is because that's part of him, and he reminds himself that, and he's sharing that story is powerful, and he's gone on to motivate millions and millions of people. So think of how your story can help others, rather than how it can help you or if it can't help you. Some of the best films are based on true life stories, people's hardships and what the lessons they learn, and what you see them going through the struggles and how they come out the other side. And I remember I went to a self-motivational event in December last year, and there was this lady. It was all about stories and your struggles, and this lady was like, a lot of people here have gone through hardships, but what if you've never faced any hardships? If you had a good life, is there power in your story? And I believe absolutely yes. We always hear about the person got from poor to rich, from struggles to prosperity, that kind of Rocky story. Even the Rocky story, Sylvester Stallone, there's a story in that himself. I'm not going to explain it all, but basically, he wrote the script himself. He wanted to star in that. He had the belief, but he had certain companies who wanted to buy the script, but didn't want him to play Rocky, and he stuck to his guns. And look where he is now. There's a story. There's lessons to be learned in that for itself. But not stories don't have to be one of hardship, of heartache, to be powerful. If you've had an amazing life, then share that. If you've had amazing parents, then share that. If you've been brought up in an amazing environment, then share that. That could inspire me as a parent to remind me, if I inspire my children, if I give them the right environment to nurture and grow, then they could become like the person standing the story. So it doesn't always have to be about, and I'm not bemoaning anyone. I grew up on a lot of this stuff relevant to me. I grew up in a council estate, had one parent on benefits, eating baked beans out of tin can, blah blah blah, this and that. Doesn't always that kind of hardship story is not the only type of story. If you've got an uplifting, powerful, positive life, then, and you've always been brought up that way, then share that. There's power in that as well. There's power in all types of story, but keep the story true to yourself. Then, I mean, yes, if you're using like fairy tale stories and stuff like that, there's a bit of make believe about it. So, but what I'm saying is, don't. I mean, I grew up on a council estate. I grew up with one parent. Things were tough, but they weren't tough. We weren't having bailiffs at our door, and that. So I'm not gonna put that because that's not the truth. That's not part of my story. I don't need to glamorize it. Your story enough is powerful enough. So that's your takeaway story. Figure out your story. Become good at telling it, not for your own sake, but for other people's sake. And if you never know, if you want to, whatever, you may even get paid for it. And there's people paying a lot of money, substantial money, to hear people speak because, like I say, stories are powerful. If you're good at that already, a bit of bonus homework. I would really encourage you, if you've got children or you have nephews or nieces or you have children around you, I'd really encourage you to being a good storyteller. I believe is about being creative as well, using props or just your tone of voice. Alison touched on this: your tone of voice, your rhythm, your pace, and what have you. Encourage your children to be creative, please. Encourage them to be as creative as possible, whether that's through art, whether that's through music, whether that's through drama, whether it's just running around the house being silly, making up something, debating. It held me back. I always told myself I wasn't creative. Everyone is creative. We all have creative gene or juice. It's just about unlocking that. And this is where I share a lot of my creativity. This is what I continue to do it. Encourage your children to be creative, and I'll go a step further to even encourage them to go to drama classes. Part of my struggle with shyness and that is because I didn't know myself, and I really struggled to pretend to be someone else when I didn't know myself. But drama has a great way of just encouraging you to be creative and looking at things from people's different perspective. Not to say you have to go on and be an actor or whatever. It will help you in all walks of life. So that's a bit of bonus homework. Must admit, I'm a little bit uncomfortable doing this. It's away from my norm. But again, it's about being creative, stepping out. I hope this message has helped someone, inspired someone, just made people think. And if you have, then it's worth me being uncomfortable, being slightly prepared, not having the right props or having the props I would have liked. So anyway, one more thing is Alison touched on the importance also of when you're telling your stories, when you're speaking, the importance of timing, especially when you're speaking in other people's environments. There were some people who had some great things to say. She gave us like a minute for certain activities, but when that minute was up, doesn't matter how good your story was, and it was really made me think about getting better and about timing. So I'm going to start experimenting with time on this Facebook Live. I already said I used to do this for half an hour. I don't know how long I've been going on for now. About 20 minutes or so. Let me just check. About 23 minutes. We're going to get under half an hour. Yeah, but moving forward, I really wanted to be 15 minutes of wisdom, 5 minutes of application, because often when we listen to things and we resonate with it, if we don't implement them straight away, then life takes over. So I'm going to take on board what Alison says. I'm going to have a bit of fun with it. Any suggestions, let me know. A buzzer or anything like that. I'm going to start testing myself on time and see how effective I can be with the time limits I've been given. Only caveat, not excuse I give myself, is that Facebook Live is a little bit different because you've got engagement with people and that. But no, we're gonna work with it and see what it is, because it may be the case that one day I might be asked to do a presentation. I don't know. So this is a good training ground to do, and I hope you'll have some fun with me. So any suggestions on timekeeping? Maybe one of you can be timekeeper for me in a week. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there, and see how we go with it. Play around with it and see how we go. So thank you for those who watch. Thank you for continued support. If you want to see any of my other stuff, check Facebook, my profile, or YouTube. I think if you YouTube search David Daniels Seeds of Wisdom, it does come up. And yeah, God willing, I'll be back next Tuesday, not on Sunday for prayer time. If those who follow the prayer time journey with me, that's finished now. I'm just doing Seeds of Wisdom. I'm not just doing. It's only Seeds of Wisdom I'm doing now on the Tuesdays. So have a fantastic rest of the week. A little bit uncomfortable doing this, but the more you're uncomfortable, the more you get comfortable. So I'm out. Shaman Smile. Adios.